And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Take a look at this if you haven't seen it just yet. The damage inflicted by this suspected arsonist against Governor Shapiro's family and his home there, the governor's mansion in Harrisburg. That man accused of using Molotov cocktails to torch the Pennsylvania governor's mansion. He now faces terrorism charges. Nobody was hurt in the attack, and cops say the suspect has confessed here. We're also learning a judge just last hour has denied bail for this suspect. Our colleague and friend there, Fox News multimedia reporter Chelsea Torres, outside the governor's mansion now in Harrisburg. She joins me with the latest. Chelsea, what more do we need to know here?
Hi, Andrew. Well, we know that when that judge denied bail, this was the first time that suspect Cody Balmer was appearing in court for this arson attack. And the reason is that the judge says, although I appreciate you turning yourself into police, you're still a risk to the community. So I want to show you now that perp walk when Cody Balmer was actually walking to that courtroom. And this is the first time our cameras are seeing him. You see that he's handcuffed. He's wearing a tan shirt. Questions were yelled at by media, but all Balmer did was stick his tongue out to the reporters. Investigators did say that Balmer even told them that he hates Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Now, in an interview with state police, Balmer says that he walked an hour from his home all the way to the governor's mansion, and he actually planned to beat Governor Shapiro with a hammer if he did see him. The fire chief says that there could have been up to 25 people in the mansion when the fire actually broke out early Sunday. Police say he broke into the mansion and threw at least 2 Molotov cocktails. You can see in this video chairs and the dining room table scorched, frames, stacks of plates, and even the walls all charred, were hours before the governor's family held Seder. Now, Balmer then escaped the home, and he did turn himself into police. The governor says he was woken up at 2 a.m. by police to evacuate, and today the fire chief says it was a surreal experience actually being there, seeing the governor's mansion burned.
But he is a domestic terrorist. And I hope that he spends a lot of time behind jail for the heinous acts that he performed. This fire was meant to get that satisfaction of, I was able to displace the governor. I was able to attack the governor, right? This was a personal attack on the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
And suspect Cody Balmer is facing 8 charges. Aside from just terrorism, he's also facing attempted homicide and aggravated arson. Andrew?
You know, Chelsea, we were covering this story all day yesterday, and now learning more because the criminal complaint has been released here, that the fire was really only just part of the plan. In court documents, authorities saying Balmer told them after he was taken into custody, he would have beaten Shapiro with the hammer if he had found him. And that is just really, really startling, really striking here. Here at Live Now, we've reached out to Governor Shapiro's office to see whether or not he might come on for an interview, kind of recounting his experience. Have you seen or heard from the governor at all there today outside the home?
No, not at all today. And really the only thing you'll find here at the mansion is crews out here. You can see them kind of going in and out, and we suspect that they're cleaning the mansion itself. But no, we haven't heard anything from Shapiro. We expected maybe to see him at maybe the press conference with the fire chief today. He was not there. We were not told he would be there. But we'll be here tomorrow, Andrew, to kind of see. And I think what's so interesting about all of this is that there's still no really clear motive. We did hear Balmer tell the judge today that he is on medication for mental health, but other than that, he said that he does not have any prior history of any drug or alcohol abuse. So really, it's just a big question of A, why did he do this, and then B, how did he even get inside the mansion? I think that's also another big question that we still have, Andrew.
All right, Chelsea Torres there live for us in Harrisburg, PA. Chelsea, thanks for bringing us this story. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. We will.
All right, in the meantime here, we do want to stay with the story. So we showed you the video of the suspect there, Cody Balmer. He's 38 years old, arriving for his arraignment in court. Let's show you the moments he departed. Remember, the judge denied him bail, and so this was the video as he was leaving court today. Let's watch, let's listen, take a look at this.
You got anything more to say on the way out here? Yeah, that looks good.
Why'd you do it?
Come on. What was it about Shapiro you don't like?
Why don't you like the governor?
What do you mean you have a lot of kids? What's that mean?
There. You gotta hide the wall. Can you use that one? The oil and asphalt. Keely, he'll use it. That was I find it.
Okay, so there he goes after being arraigned in court there in Dauphin County in Pennsylvania. And so what a just incredible set of circumstances there. You saw him, the suspect, extremely gaunt, frail. He stuck out his tongue at reporters. Our own Fox 29 Philadelphia friend and colleague there, Jeff Cole, was on hand trying to shout questions to the suspect there. Though we are hearing now from Governor Shapiro himself. He posted this message on X today saying this weekend our family witnessed the incredible bravery and excellence of our first responders. The entire Shapiro family is eternally grateful for the Pennsylvania State Police troopers who safely evacuated our family from danger, the firefighters who quickly put out the fire at the governor's residence, and the law enforcement officials who've worked to investigate this attack from the bottom of all of our hearts. Thank you, says Governor Shapiro. In the meantime, let's listen in yet again here in replay to Harrisburg fire officials. We also have there DHS Secretary Kristi Noem saying the attack against Governor Shapiro and his family on the first night of Passover was heinous and cowardly. Political violence of any kind has no place in America. DHS stands ready to assist Pennsylvania law enforcement to give them every tool they need for their investigation. So wanted to make sure we got some of these reactions in as well here. Now, in the meantime, you see there also from former President Joe Biden saying Jill and I are disgusted by the attack on the Shapiro family and their home during the first night of Passover. He says we are relieved that they are safe and grateful to the first responders there. He says there is no place for this type of evil in America. And as I told the governor yesterday, he says we must stand united against hatred and violence. So former President Biden there saying he spoke with Governor Shapiro on the phone in the wake of this attack here. But like I said, we did want to replay for you some of the updates today in this briefing we got, not from Pennsylvania State Police, but from Harrisburg Fire, who responded there to the attempted arson. Let's listen.
All right, so I think what we'll do, I'll give you just a brief overview of where we are from the city's perspective. I'm not going to talk much, if any, at all about the criminal side. I'll give you the fire department perspective, what we saw, what we did, some of the challenges that we have being the capital city, and then I'll take any questions in a very methodical way. Like, I think we'll start here and we'll go around. That'll make it easy so I don't get stressed out and start to cry.
Chief,
Understand.
first, tell us who you are.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know who I am? You know who I am. So, first name is Brian, B-R-I-A-N. Last name is Enterline, E-N-T-E-R-L-I-N-E. And I'm the fire chief for the city of Harrisburg. On about 2:03 on Sunday morning, the city of Harrisburg and the Harrisburg Bureau of Fire were the targets, as well as the governor of Pennsylvania, of a domestic terrorism incident when the governor's mansion was firebombed by a domestic terrorism suspect. It put not only the first family of Pennsylvania, the firemen of the Harrisburg Bureau of Fire, but every Pennsylvanian on watch and in awe of how quickly the scope of that fire escalated, and that we could have a fire of such substance in our historic governor's mansion. We were quickly on the scene and met with the Pennsylvania State Police, part of the protection detail. And the complex itself has a lot of challenges to it. It is a very large complex, and it is very secure, right? So we can't just drive fire trucks to the front of the thing like we normally can do if we're going to a fire here in the 600 block of Dauphin Street. So it posed some challenges. Number one, finding where the fire was to start, and then additionally being able to gain entry. So we had to cut some gates, and we're going to be releasing on the city website probably later today a really brief video from Wagon 3 that's behind me that shows some of those initial actions of the work that had to be done before we even got to the fire, right? So they quickly identified we had to cut some gates. They were able to make those cuts in the gates to get those hose lines stretched back to where the building was on fire. And we had a very significant fire burning. Everybody was down there in the ballroom and the reception area of the building. Unfortunately, we did have to force entry, so it wasn't just as easy as walking up to the building, opening the door, and getting in there. So we did have more work that we had to do to get inside that building. Once we got inside the building and started getting it opened up, we were able to quickly contain that fire from spreading. When we look at the fire grew fairly quickly because it was accelerated by those Molotov cocktails that were used in the firebombing. It was a very surreal scene when I got there, about 15 minutes into it, seeing fire coming from the governor's mansion. When I first went in to brief the scene before the fire was even out, it became very apparent that this was not an ordinary fire. Number one, not because it was just in the governor's mansion, but because of the circumstances that I saw inside surrounding the fire. So I immediately reached out to Pennsylvania State Police to bring their arson investigation team in, and we started to preserve that scene while also, again, needing to put out the fire, but we needed to preserve that scene and that evidence so that case could move forward with quality evidence that wasn't destroyed in the firefight. And that's often a challenge dealing with a building that's on fire, preserving that evidence that's been left behind by the perpetrators. And so we were quickly able, within about a half hour, got control of it. We chased a couple of hot spots in the building. And, from that point on, we knew it was, I was briefed on the video of the actual perpetrator in the building. And so at that point, we kind of pulled all of our folks out. A couple things on fire growth and fire dynamics, the way it grew. Luckily for the governor and his family, there were doors closed between that main portion of the ballroom and the hallway that leads to the main and master staircase going to the second floor. It would have been a totally different fire and a totally different outcome, most likely, had that door not been closed. I want to talk a little bit about the personal aspect of it as well, because fire affects Americans on a daily basis. Here in Pennsylvania, we kill about as many Pennsylvanians as any other state in the nation. Our fire death rate is significant in Pennsylvania, and so we deal with this on a near daily basis. There is a personal touch, and let's face it, we have a homeless encampment in South Harrisburg where I had a fatality earlier this year. Those folks, the whole way up through the governor of Pennsylvania that I'm responsible for protecting, the members of the Harrisburg Bureau of Fire do such a wonderful job of protecting. We all have one thing in common, and that's we're humans. And there's a human element to fire and the way it affects us, and that was very evident in Governor Shapiro the other night. I won't get into the personal conversations that he and I had with his family, but I can tell you that he was personally affected in a very positive way, though negative at the time, on the effects of fire and that fire has on human beings. And I believe when we look at everything, when we look at the fires that we go to here in Harrisburg, when we look at the poverty that we deal with here in Harrisburg, and we look at the circumstances that we have to deal with, again, the least of these being in the homeless encampments, to being responsible for protecting the infrastructure that runs and gives the heart and soul to the elected officials of Pennsylvania, all here in one 11.1 square mile city. It was a very a touching moment and an understanding moment for him that fire is a personal thing. It's not something that happens to somebody else. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can imagine what that looks like. I see it on a near weekly basis. This time it happened to be with the head of our government here in Pennsylvania. And I'm hopeful that interaction that he and I had with his family present will help to give more vigor to the changes that need to happen in the Pennsylvania Fire Service and the support that the Pennsylvania Fire Service needs from state government, not just here in Harrisburg, but across the Commonwealth. And one of the biggest things that I'm certain will come from this is the governor's mansion, through the remodel, will hopefully have a fully functional and operating fire sprinkler system installed within it. And that is something we need to push for more throughout Pennsylvania. And I hope that it starts right down here on 2nd Street with the governor's mansion as we work through the remodel of that historic building here in Harrisburg. So with that, I think that is the end of everything that I have to add from the fire side of things. I will entertain questions. We'll start from my left and we'll go around.
Thanks, Chief. There was no fire suppression in the governor's mansion?
No fire suppression system. There was a fire alarm system, but not an active fire suppression system, meaning fire sprinklers that would have put the fire out before it spread.
And you touched on this, but maybe you say more. When you arrive on scene, you've dealt with fires in any number of structures, but to see flames coming out of the governor's mansion, how did that affect your response and your impression?
You know, for us, it's a surreal feeling. I'm still really dealing with it internally. We deal in, just right across the street here, we had a significant fire that displaced a beautiful family, right? And knowing, though, that when we put our right hands up here in Harrisburg, every firefighter here is trained and ready to respond to, again, the least of these, but also that we have the state government that we're also responsible for. And that is a large responsibility. That entails a lot of training and behind the scenes things that the general public doesn't get to see, so that we have and are able to assist the Commonwealth with maintaining continuity of government operations.
Chief, were the alarms going off?
They were. Yes, they were. Yes, they were activated. Thankfully.
Can you talk about when you were cutting the gates? Is there
Sure.
any indication of exactly how Balmer was able to get through those gates, jumped over, went under? How did that work out?
Yeah, so from the criminalist side of it, I've seen the video. So he jumped over the gate, not the gate that we forced and forced entry into. So we cut a very different gate on the 2nd Street side of the building. Again, and we'll release some video of that later today.
And they were talking about how it was all within a matter of minutes that he was able to get in, actually get inside the home, do the cocktail, and then get out. I mean, how is it that there was no security around, or no one was able to stop him at any time?
That is a very good question for Pennsylvania State Police and the governor's detail. I will not comment on anything dealing with criminal investigation, other than it is 100%, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name because I don't want his name national in any kind of a positive light, seen as a hero, but he is a domestic terrorist. And I hope that he spends a lot of time behind jail for the heinous acts that he performed here in our capital city that put not only the first family, but my firefighters at risk.
Talk a little bit more about that you're using the term domestic terrorism, and that it's not just the first family, but your firefighters.
Right. This fire was meant to get that satisfaction of I was able to displace the governor. I was able to attack the governor, right? This was a personal attack on the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We got to put politics aside and understand, again, at the end of the day, what I said, the governor was human at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, just like every one of us is human, and that's that bond that we have. And when we attack each other, we get absolutely nowhere. There's a time and place to voice those frustrations. We have beautiful Capitol down there that you can picket at, that you can storm whenever you want with your picket signs and your anger. But it's got to stop before you get to the point where you want to firebomb an elected official or anybody for that matter. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and that should be the connecting bond for peace and unity here in Pennsylvania.
Yesterday when we spoke, you mentioned that you had the buzzsaw cut into the property and that you had to find the spot where the fire was located. How long did it take for you to start putting out the fire once arriving on property?
Look, reviewing the video, there was probably a 3 to 5 minute delay. Again, we had to, we're given one address for a very large complex that spans an entire city block, essentially. And, it spans from McClay to Geiger Street and front to 2nd. So the Pennsylvania State Police troopers that were there were busy evacuating the governor, his family, and the extended family that were there. so they were not immediately available to point us in the right direction. And because of where the fire was, it wasn't immediately visible from the front of the building where we were at.
And in your entire career, have you ever seen anything like you saw on Sunday morning with that type of attack on the governor's mansion? And what type of impact did that have on you?
You know, so we deal with arson. I've dealt with fire bombings, you know, throughout my career here in Harrisburg. They do happen. They are unfortunate acts. Look, the Molotov cocktail is no different than a gun, right? When I got that Molotov cocktail in my hand, I know at the end of the day, I'm going to create damage, destruction, and probably going through the terrorist's mind was, I want to kill somebody, right? So it's no different than that gun when I'm holding somebody up to steal their money, right? I know what the outcome could potentially be, and I think that's the surreal part of it, that there can be that much hatred pent up in somebody that they're able to take out that anger in such a way. And it is a horrendous way not only to attack somebody, but God forbid a fatality. Dying in a fire is just an absolute, when you know, I can get back to my time just several months ago with the homeless gentleman that died in the fire. The angst and just the terror as he was screaming when I first pulled in on scene before he died was just blood curdling, right? And that's what these folks don't think of at the end of the day.
How many people were in?
Okay, so you've been listening there to the Harrisburg, PA fire chief describe the response he and his crew members there made to the governor's mansion early Sunday morning in Pennsylvania as Governor Shapiro and his family were woken up by bangs on the door around 2 a.m. to evacuate because that major room where they had just celebrated the Passover Seder meal the night before was up in flames, and you've seen some of the devastation wrought by these Molotov cocktails that the suspect allegedly threw in under a minute time there. Balmer rather is his name, the suspect you watched there. His arraignment, his arrival and departure as well. It's a story we're going to stay on top of throughout the course of this evening.